Yo, it's that Mob Talk Radio. You already know. Jeff Canarski in the house. Let's go. Lights dim, mic on, just voice in the air, telling tales of the mob. Like we were there, late night sessions. Secrets we uncover from the legend in the shadows to the unsung bro. Every broadcast a lesson, a glimpse of the cold. From the underworld stories that have been told. Mob talk, get real, just bringing up the heat from the streets to right. We ain't never miss a beat. Listen close, just know this game ain't fake and sweet. Mob talk, checking us, we control the seat. Mob talk, get real, just bringing up the heat from the streets to right. We ain't never miss a beat. Listen close, cause you know this game ain't fake and sweet. Mob talk, checking us, we control the seat. Tune in every week, Jeff talking about the life deep inside. From the dawns to the trails, like secret they confide. Stories of the streets, no respects a heavy price. This is Mob Talk Radio, they said you be advised. Echoes from the shadows, the truth they don't deny. Chefs here with the tails from the corners to the sky. Underworld whispers, angel stories, they the life. Through the eyes of legends, you see the struggle and the strife. With his golden mic in hand, he paints the picture clear. The rise and fall of empires, the power and the fear. With the golden mic in hand, he paints the picture clear. The rise and fall of empires, the power and the fear. Mob talk, get real, just bringing up the heat from the streets to right. We ain't never miss a beat. Listen close, cause you know this game ain't fake and sweet. Mob talk, checking us, we control the seat. Mob talk, get real, just bringing up the heat from the streets to right. We ain't never miss a beat. Listen close, cause you know this game ain't fake and sweet. Mob talk, checking us, we control the seat. Tune in every week, Jeff talking about the life deep inside. From the dawns to the trails, like secret they confide. Stories of the streets, no respects a heavy price. This is Mob Talk Radio, they said you be advised. Yo, it's that Mob Talk Radio.
Tell you something. If you two ever bother me again the rest of my life, I ain't giving them attention. I can't. There's good friends of mine out there say. Well, he's the boss, you have to do it tough. That's why I said to you before, you don't understand what the money. The most of me is that the boss is your boss.
All right, and welcome to Mob Talk Radio. Sorry about the glitches there. It's been a long time since I've done it this way. Originally, I was going to do this as a live, but I think for the purposes of what I'm trying to accomplish today, it's probably better that I don't. We will still be doing a Mob Talk Radio live. I'm just going to switch around a couple of things. All that being said, if you're new here, do us a favor, like, share, and subscribe. We picked up a ton of new subscribers in the last 2 weeks. Also, if you guys are interested, we do 3 other podcasts. We do a horror podcast, we do a hockey podcast, and we are doing a podcast called The Diner, which has 2 episodes. You can just click our playlist and go through there and find something you like. All right. And anyway, as far as we go, if you guys are interested in reading my book, The Mike and the Mob, go to Barnes & Noble and type in The Mike and the Mob or Jeff Canarski. We are still selling close to 35 books a day. Amazing. Absolutely amazing. If you're interested in Mafia merch, you can go to our store, bonfire.com store, Mob Talk Radio Speakeasy, or you can click the store tab on our YouTube page. And as well, we're going to leave this running up today. If you'd like to donate to the show, we would appreciate it. With all that being said, we are going to talk about Sammy Gravano today. I know it's a long-winded subject. It's sort of a broken down fucking Buick of a conversation. However, one of the things that I think I'm trying to figure out how to word this the right way. I think one of the things that content creators, when they're talking about Sammy Gravano, completely miss is there is stuff out there, factually speaking, that just really I'm the only one that covers, and I can't understand that for the life of me. And I say that because there's just so many things that refute what Gravano has said throughout his history, that it's very easy to pick through his nonsense and his lies. And really, when you really break it down, because we cover history over here on this channel, you would really be hard pressed to ever find a guy, even Greg Scarpa, you would be hard pressed to find a lower subhuman trash pail worse than this guy. This is a guy that's, I believe, in his 80s, still thinks he's a gangster. And he recently released his Sons of Ecstasy, which was a hour and 20-minute laugh-a-thon for me. It was shot pretty well, so I'm not gonna knock the visual, but everything that they said from beginning to end was a lie. Absolutely everything. I don't know when Gerard Gravano became a tough guy, but apparently since he gave Lee the old 5-finger shuffle, he's a tough guy. There you go, Lee. You bring out the toughest ones and the weakest ones. There you go. I don't want to talk about Sons of Ecstasy because everybody else and their mother has. And what's the point in giving you my opinion on it? Because my opinion is it was trash and it was garbage. We were the first to report that the Italian American Civil Rights League is, in fact, going after Gravano and some other things. But when you think about Gravano, you have to understand a couple of things. Number one, much of who Gravano becomes, he never becomes if Frankie DeChico isn't killed. John Gotti, you guys can have your opinion on him all day long. But I think that the reality is that Gravano was a nobody. He was really a nobody in the mob. Now, some of you may take umbrance with what I just said and say, well, no, he was a somebody. He really wasn't. In the grand scheme of the hierarchy of things, he was a nobody. He gets the position by proxy. And that's really the truth of the matter. And one of the more interesting things, too, and I'm not going to regurgitate the Alan Kaiser stuff today. It's going to come up a little bit, but I'm not going to regurgitate a lot of stuff you've heard before because, believe it or not, I have stuff today that nobody's ever said on YouTube. Not a single person has ever done this. And what strikes me as odd, and this isn't knocking anybody, it's just weird to me, with the information so publicly readily available at times, why wouldn't anybody talk about what I'm about to talk about today? They will mention it in passing, but they just don't have the numbers. And I don't know. I think people are really missing out on covering a topic in-depth wise. But I think a lot of that too is I don't think people want to search for hours on the internet. I don't blame them. I have a whole catalog of things here. So some of the things we're going to talk about today, some of it's going to be regurgitated. And because we have a lot of new subscribers and et cetera, I sometimes like to rehash some things. So nothing that I'm going to say tonight is really going to be shocking to many of you. But like I said, after sitting through the puke-inducing Sons of Ecstasy, let me say this. That entire doc, like I said at the beginning, was absolutely one lie after another. Number one, nobody was afraid of Gerard Gravano. Nobody ever will be. Listen, this is a guy that could have gotten the job done on Lee Cole and failed. So, and when Gerard Gravano became a gangster and a tough guy is really anybody's guess. And they tried throughout the entire show to clear Sammy of any drug dealing. But what they don't tell you is Gravano was caught on multiple wiretaps discussing the business. Yes, I know they played a couple on the show, but in reality, there are so much more. There's just so much more to it. He was discussing business. He funded the whole entire operation. And his son used his name and his father's reputation to try to intimidate people. And so explain to me how Sammy had nothing to do with that. How did he have nothing to do with it? If you fund it, you're involved in it. Secondly, Organized crime never ever put a contract on the head of Gerard. That's a huge lie. That's to make him look tougher, to make the family look more dramatic, because it's public record that John Gotti explained that Sammy's kids could not be touched. So this is another invention by the Gravanos to attempt to make the situation appear more dramatic, to put them in sort of the crosshairs of trouble. It's just all nonsense. So to me, it was a shit show. And Gravano's, one of the biggest lies he tells on the show is he never hurt anybody or killed anybody that was innocent. That's a lie. We know he killed Alan Kaiser, who had just turned 16 years old. I know I said 17 on another show. Let me correct myself. It was 16. He killed a 16-year-old boy for no reason. And, this was a lie from beginning to end. Not much of anything in the Sons of Ecstasy was actually accurate. In fact, a lot of this stuff being circulated is just almost laughable. And that's the other thing. There has been somebody emailed me the other day with some clips, and I'm not, this isn't about anybody. It's just an overall statement. Somebody continues to spew that Paul Castellano knew about Alan Kaiser getting murdered. That is not true. John Gotti didn't even know. It is a fact. Nobody knew Gravano did that. Nobody. So anybody telling you that is lying to you because they did not know about that. And I think, number one, I talked to people that were in the streets in those days. Nobody knew. Nobody knew, because most of the people I talked to told me certifiably, if that had happened under Paul Castellano's watch, Sammy Gravano would have been killed. Bottom line, end of story. John Gotti would have never had anything to do with him. Those are facts. So I don't know why people are saying that, because there's no facts to back that up. But I think people just infer that he knew, but he didn't. He had no clue. Not a single clue. Not a clue. So when we talk about Gravano, he still owes over $2 million just in Arizona. He still owes over $2 million alone in Arizona. And just because I don't want people to say I'm inventing this, I'm going to show you something. And this came from a court docket. Let's see. Window. Okay. This actually came from court dockets. Let me see if I can move this around just a little bit. And so here's the thing, right? Gravano claims all of this stuff. He's making all of this money left and right, but he still owes money, not just in Arizona, but he still owes a ton of money in New York that he's never paid. And I'm going to go through this really quick. Sammy the Bull Gravano and Deborah Gravano were ordered to pay the state of Arizona $805,713.41 as a reimbursement for court costs and investigative expenses related to an earlier drug ring judgment. Attorney General Terry Goddard said that the monies were meant to reimburse the Phoenix Police Department and his office for actual costs involved in the investigation of Gravano's drug ring, plus reasonable attorney fees to reimburse his office for prosecutors to combat organized crime and drug dealing. A final order judgment of $805,713 was entered against the Gravanos jointly and severally by the Maricopa County Court on November 5th of 2003. The Gravanos were arrested and indicted in early 2000 when an investigation into the market of MDMA or ecstasy revealed that the Gravanos were major players in Arizona's drug scene. In October of 2002, Gravano was sentenced to 19 years in prison after he pled guilty to 10 felony charges: conspiracy to sell dangerous drugs, participating in a criminal syndicate, illegal enterprise, money laundering, weapons misconduct, and the use of electric communication in a drug-related transaction. Deborah Gravano pled guilty to one count of illegally conducting an enterprise, for which she is serving 5 years of supervised probation. She was fully active in the smuggling of ecstasy, serving as the banker for her family that operated the enterprise, and knew that the money she was banking was used for purchase of ecstasy. That enterprise removed approximately $1 million out of Arizona's legitimate economy in exchange for illegal drugs and caused additional substantial losses in health, public safety and drug expenses, welfare expenses, including damaging people who use the drugs. The investigation was conducted by the Phoenix Police Department and the federal DEA with assistance from the Gilbert Police Department and Arizona Department of Public Safety. This most recent judgment brings the total to more than $2 million in judgments obtained by the state against the Gravanos, including an unspecified amount from royalties from Sammy Gravano's book, Underboss. So what they were actually able to do was use the son of Sam law to sue the shit out of him and take his money. And that's basically, they at least got this portion of it. So here is the number one, forfeiture of Underboss royalties related to the property that is proceeds of racketeering entered on October 26th of 2001. Sammy's attorney has recently requested and noted state Supreme Court to overturn the order and review the judgment of the Supreme Court of Arizona, denying a review of the Arizona Court Appeals opinion that affirmed the trial court order of forfeiture. So we talk all the time about RICO cases and et cetera. Plain and simple, cut and dry. Anytime you're involved in any kind of criminal conspiracy, everything you have, houses, boats, cars, whatever the case may be, that can be forfeited. Okay. In many cases, they'll charge you for the expenses for what the state or the government has to spend to prosecute you. It's also worth noting that the Gravanos were taken to court and sued by their defense attorneys who were never paid. So the judge had to force a judgment for them to get their money. So once again, this is just typical Gravano. Number two, the final order of monetary judgment against Salvatore Gravano in the amount of $88,552 as attorney fees, forfeiting book royalties and other proceeds of racketeering R.E. Underboss, entered on January 30th of 2002. The final order of monetary judgment against Salvatore Gravano and Deborah Gravano jointly and severally in the amount of $933,750 was entered on June 2nd of 2003. Deborah's attorney has appealed that decision, requesting that the Arizona Court of Appeals overturn the judgment. In the most recent final and the final order of monetary judgment against Gravano and Deborah, jointly and severally in the amount of $805,000, was entered on November 5th of 2003. So in just this sort of case alone, they legitimately owe still over $2 million, and they've never paid it back, which makes one almost have to ask, where's this money going they're making now? Where's the money they're going now? You know? So to date, none of these have been paid by the Gravanos. Additionally, not much, if anything, was ever paid back to the state, never mind on his first conviction of federal level back in New York. And I believe that fine was something like $5 million. However, Deborah Gravano appealed at the superior level because she felt that forfeiture was unfair. And let's look at that. And this will show you how stupid she is. In the legal briefing, Deborah Gravano was named as the business partner and former wife of Salvatore Gravano, and that after her divorce, she moved to Arizona, bought a home in Tempe and a restaurant in Scottsdale. In the second paragraph, it states that Deborah was the banker for the family's ecstasy operation known as Southwest Ecstasy Enterprise. The members of this enterprise were Deborah Gravano, Karen Gravano, Gerard Gravano, David Seabrook, and Salvatore Gravano. The entries hailed in February of 2000 with arrests of its members. The problem is, when the state did a records check, they found that Deborah Gravano lied. She perjured herself because her and Sammy Gravano are not divorced, have never been divorced, and it was a bold-faced lie. She was doing it to try to keep money, which obviously at that point, if you're that stupid to think that the system isn't going to look into your divorce, you got to provide divorce records. Let me guess, you got divorced down in Mexico, right? So in June of 2000, the state of Arizona filed a REM civil forfeiture lawsuit against the Gravanos. This is in addition to everything else we already talked about, pursuant to the Arizona Racketeering Act. The state was seeking $933,750 from drug sale proceeds. It states that Gravano used illicit money gained from the Gambino crime family to establish 3 enterprises, which included Uncle Sal's Italian Ristorante and I call it Moron. I know it's Moron Investments and Marathon Developments LLC. And what's really, really, really sort of kind of important about this last thing is that they're stating in court documents at the state level and the federal level that he was allowed to keep money from the Gambino crime family. He was moved to Arizona, got a facelift, got his pecker changed, whatever it is he did down there. And he was able to use the money illegally gained from organized crime to establish 3 businesses, which were supposed to be legit, which weren't. They were fronts for everything else. And it's odd to me. It's odd to me because why wouldn't the FBI force him? And here's my point. I'll make it very easy. If you get a $5 million judgment against you, or let's say the government says you're going to pay a $5 million fine for everything you did, but we're going to forgive you 19 murders, give you absolution, and we're going to send you to Tempe and let you like lay on a rock like a fucking lizard. My question is, why, if they knew that he was using illegal money from the Gambinos to set up these 3 front companies, why didn't the government say, excuse me, you owe us $5 million fucking dollars. You owe us money. You got money off a book deal. Where is our money? And that's the problem with the federal government. I'm just being honest. That's the problem with the FBI, is they kowtow to certain informants more so than others. And they allow him to take his millions of fucking dollars. Now Gerard's story is, I was driving back to New York and I was digging up money out of the ground. Fuck you. You're full of shit. You guys took the money with you. And that statement from the state alone proves that Gerard was not going back to New York to dig up money. They were allowed to take it. So this idea that Gerard surreptitiously is driving from Tempe to New York and a pickaxe and a shovel and digging up 30 money, fuck you, you loser. You're so full of shit. It's just total bullshit. It's total bullshit. All of it. So the Gravanos pulled in an estimated $1 to $1.5 million in proceeds from illegal drug sales. As a result of this, the Gravanos attempted, now this is a great thing, they attempted to settle out with the state of Arizona. And so what you can often do is you can settle your fiduciary penalties. You can settle out. So if they say we want 5 million, they can say, all right, well, we'll give you 2.5. You can do that. But here's where they got screwed. This is how stupid they are. So they were attempting to settle out with the state of Arizona for these criminal penalties. And at the same time they're doing that, they were also going back and forth with the state over a plea agreement. And the state's offer for financial settlements They ran out prior to their plea agreement taking place. So in other words, it's before their plea agreement is signed. They're over here on one hand saying, all right, here's the financial stuff. We'll give you like 2.1. Okay. But the problem is that there is only a certain allotted amount of time where you can arrange a financial settlement. And the problem is that if your time period to obtain a financial settlement runs out prior to a plea agreement, guess what? You're fucked. And that's exactly what took place. But it was according to Deborah Gravano that she was not married to Salvatore and that her guilty plea stopped her from denying the facts of her defense. So her whole entire defense was based on a lie. These are the type of people that they are. The state then went on to take their homes and other properties, and Deborah was fighting all of it. The courts would not even hear it. And as stated above, they granted a judgment against the Gravanos to be awarded to the state. The attorneys also sued for compensation for the defense because the Gravanos had not paid them a fucking dime. Her last argument was that the state pursuit of civil forfeiture violations violated her plea agreement. Once again, read the lettering at the end of your plea agreement, Dunsky. And they lost that too. And to date, none of this has been paid back. The only thing the state ever received was $88,000 for his self-entitled book, Underboss. So all of this bullshit, all this money he's making on Patreon and making on YouTube, He's not paying them a dime. Why are they not going after these people? They don't give a fuck about money. That's just the truth. So we have to move into another area just really quick. Because I want you guys to understand what a Rule 33 is. John Gotti and Frankie LoCascio filed a Rule 33 motion in 1997. And so what is a Rule 33? Well, the motion is a defense motion to vacate a judgment and grant a new trial that's based on the best interest of justice. And it would include newly discovered evidence and other grounds to substantiate innocence or to refute evidence given by cooperators. Now, I know what some of you are already saying. Here he goes again. Let me just make this statement. Anything that Gravano could have perjured himself on was not going to change John Gotti's verdict. It just wasn't. However, what it does open itself up to is this idea that Gravano was telling the truth about anything. If you perjure yourself once, you perjure yourself a million times. And it's just proof that the government, which they did, John Gleason especially, buried information. Now, would that have totally gotten John Gotti not convicted? No. But what it would have done is it would have drawn reasonable doubt to a jury that Gravano was full of shit. And we're going to talk about a couple of those things. And these are all things you can find for yourself. So, under the Rule 33 motion, the claim was that the testimony of Salvatore Gravano was perjurious and the government willingly and permittedly allowed it to be given. And like I said, before any of you jump my shit, the tapes, because that's the other thing a lot of people are going to say. But you have to understand that Gravano's testimony was integral to deciphering those tapes. Because two guys could be sitting on the couch talking about ducks in Arkansas, but if an informant says, no, 2 ducks is 2 kilos, that's a little bit of a circus sort of description of it. But that's the reality. That's why they need a lot of informants. Joey Massino, when he went bad, really was more integral into describing the tapes and talking about unsolved murders than he was anything else. So different things for different people, but tapes are not always clear cut that way. And this was the massive argument by Gravano. And I can tell you without a fact, there are some arguments that Frankie Loke and John Gotti made through appellate paperwork that has real merit. The basis of it was perjury, right? And the evidence to substantiate those claims revolved around claims and facts that supported that Gravano committed serious crimes in addition to those he admitted to during the course of his testimony, his debriefings, and therefore there was no available examinations with respect to them. So in other words, when you sit down with the feds, you got to tell them all the dirt you ever did. Gravano hid a lot of stuff, right? And so if he hid things, then that means that on cross-examination by the defense, if they don't know about it, they can't even ask him about it. And so that's the first problem. And these were the specific crimes they were honing in on. Gravano's involvement in a conspiracy to import cocaine into the United States, along with Anthony Gaspipe Casso. However, the successful completion of this importation was seized in July of 1991 from a fishing vessel named Hunter. Number 2, Gravano's murder of Jules Cass in the course of an armed robbery in 1972, and Gravano's enlistment of the person named Steve Goodman to extort Donald Maui, whose death was caused by a beating administered by Goodman at the behest of Gravano. In the Gotti, and I'm not going to read the whole entire briefing, in the Gotti and LoCascio brief, it explains that Gravano perjured himself because he didn't disclose narcotics trafficking and failed to disclose that he misled the jury when he stated he never sold drugs in his life. And that is the one thing, if you go in and you look at the court testimony, that is the one thing that comes up over and over and over and over again. He just lies nonstop. Now, when I went through the brief, I caught at least 10 perjurious statements. And I'm not saying because I like the Gottis. No, there were 10 statements where on line 1, he would say one thing. By line 19, he's telling a different story. And so I can only imagine how frustrated Gotti and LoCascio's lawyers were, because it's that easy to see. Especially the fact that he said, I never sold a drug in my life. Right, okay. On June 23rd of 92, prior prosecutor and then judge John Gleason received information from Al Diarco, who had become a government witness, and that he had been in business with Gravano with narcotics, and confirmed that he knew of additional murders that Gravano had been involved in that were never prosecuted or brought up. This information proved, albeit at the word of Diarco, that Gravano had in fact perjured himself, and Gleason knew about this during the trial and never bothered to mention it to the defense team nor the prosecution. Those are facts. The material, in fact, was suppressed by Gleason, further proving that Gotti and LoCascio's attorney handed in reports from special agents of the FBI who interviewed Diarco prior to their trial. And it proved that the prosecution knew about the claims prior and suppressed them, meaning kept them out. Let's just let dust grow on this. This is the one thing that John Gleason did during that trial. There are dozens of instances where John Gleason knew stuff and just kept it under the table because their conviction of John Gotti was more important than what was true and what was real. And those are just facts. And listen, I'm not saying John Gotti was a saint, but what I'm saying to you is you have the right in this country to defend yourself. And there were certain things they held back because it made their star witness look bad. While this briefing was filed, Patsy Conti, a Gambino captain, had been indicted and arrested for murder. That indictment would supersede into narcotics trafficking and conspiracy to murder. And the infamous Conti letter stated that Gravano, acting upon John Gotti's instructions, told Conti that he could resume his heroin business. However, what was refuted were Gravano's own statements under cross-examination about never ever selling drugs, never having a conversation about being involved in drugs, didn't want nothing to do with it. However, Gravano had stated on several of his podcasts that he never sold drugs, and he never gave permission for Patsy Conti to sell drugs. But then in others, he admits to actually doing that. So as you can see, Gravano has been a lying dog for most of his life. And listen, Gravano going to anybody saying, well, John said go ahead and sell drugs. That doesn't mean John said go ahead and sell drugs. In fact, I'm going to tell you something here that's going to kind of refute that in a second. But that's the reality of Gravano. He has just lied his whole entire fucking life. But let's go back to the Hunter vessel. In December of 1990, Peter Calfano and 10 others were charged with conspiracy to import cocaine into the United States and to distribute and possess with intent. And as we know, the government seized that fishing vessel a couple of miles off the shore of Fire Island. And they would find 4,000 kilos of cocaine below deck. And what comes down the line is an informant who was working for the DEA. And this informant tells the DEA that Gravano and Anthony Gaspipe Casso were the ones responsible for that shipment, and they were the two guys that were involved in the whole thing. Gleason declared at the time he knew nothing about any kind of letters, knew nothing about any informant saying anything. And he declared that even if he knew, he wouldn't have brought that up at trial, nor would he have asked Gravano anything about it. Why not? And that to me is the biggest thing about Gleason being a pile of shit. That makes him a pile of shit. Him admitting, even if he knew about it, which he didn't, he wouldn't have questioned Gravano anyway. Why? Isn't that imperative? You want to nail John Gotti for narcotics trafficking? To me, that's what you would bring up. It's ridiculous. And to further make that situation a glowing red flag, John Gotti was caught on a wiretap discussing the event, asking Gravano if he knew anything about what the hell that was about. And then Gotti says to him, I heard that belonged to Gaspipe. And Gravano plays dumb. Oh, I don't know. That's not Gotti saying, hey, that's our shipment. Those are our drugs. What the fuck? That's him saying, did you hear anything about this? I heard it belonged to Casso. Gravano clams up. He doesn't know shit. Not long after that, 2 documents would show up, which suggested that Gravano, in fact, 100% was involved with that operation and narcotics. And these documents were also suppressed by Gleason. A DEA report dated December of 91 a DEA agent recorded an interview with an informant in September of 91. The informant stated that he knew from a source that Salvatore Gravano was the primary person who arranged for the Hunter vessel to pick up cocaine. The second document, which is dated September 23rd of 92, 5 months after the guilty verdict, 5 months after the guilty verdict in the Gotti case, another DEA report came forward describing a statement of another informant who was a participant in the Hunter vessel ship. This informant recounted that Gravano was in fact involved and that he was the man behind the business with Casso. And so what about that infamous wiretap? Gotti, this is what he says. Let's see. Let me go. They can pick out one with a, listen, I hear Gas Pipe's boat got caught in Howard Beach in Freeport. 50,000 bales, 50,000 pounds, 50,000 tons. I don't know what it was. Did that happen? Gravano, I don't know. Gotti is like, I don't know what it's about. I mean, I'm not aware. I don't know what's going on. Gravano, probably. So that's Gravano just completely, he's totally involved. But that's not Gotti saying that it was theirs. That's him saying, did you hear this? It's crazy. Gravano, oh, I don't know. But yet you have multiple informants telling the DEA and the FBI that. So an affidavit would be submitted to the courts, and Peter Calfano stated that his direct liaison to the cocaine conspiracy was in fact Tommy Irish Carew. And Carew even admitted that the money and the drugs was to be delivered to both Salvatore Gravano and Anthony Gaspipe Casso. Multiple informants came forward and told Gleason the same exact stories, but they never interviewed any of them. They were getting letters from prisoners saying, hey, we were on the streets when this happened. We know. Gleason wouldn't interview any of them, wouldn't even talk to them. And I could go on and on and on and on. But if you're curious, go to our Gravano Paperwork Party episodes, because we talk about a lot of different stuff. But it just proves the point. Every step of the way, Gravano has been a fucking liar. And one of the reasons why Casso's agreement was ripped up is because Casso started to bark in jail about Gravano and drugs. According to the FBI, you guys love this part. According to the FBI, Casso was shaking down people and getting violent in jail, and that's why they ripped up his agreement. But that's not true, because through the Freedom of Information Act, he was never written up once for anything. For anything. That is a bold-faced lie by the FBI, because they did not want Casso talking about shit him and Gravano did. And there's a lot of other stuff, especially when, and I'm not gonna go all into this sort of stuff, but the reality is at one point, John Gotti wanted the Gambinos to have nothing to do with Casso and everybody else because he knew what was going on. Yet, at the time that he told the Gambinos stay the hell away from Amuso and Casso, there's Gravano in Brooklyn hanging out with them after he was told not to. So once again, it's just more proof that Gravano's a lying fuck and was out for his own fucking sort of dealings, right? All right, so we're almost done, guys. Give me 1 second here. So this guy, he's a lowlife in every fucking way. In every imaginable way. He's no redeeming qualities. Listen, I give it to some people. Listen, they do what they got to do. They go to jail, they get out, they don't break the law again. I get it. This guy's like a walking fucking stool pigeon. He's a lowlife, and there is some stuff that he refuses to talk about. Listen, we were the first people in the mob genre to tell you. We were the first ones to tell you that Sammy the Bull's nickname was because he was from Bull's Head, Staten Island. We were the first people to tell you that. But all you other people believed, oh, look at him, he's a little bull, he can fight this. You guys believed that for fucking 20 fucking years. We were the first people to tell you that wasn't the case. He doesn't talk about killing his gay lover in Brooklyn. And there is just so much that is despicable that in all the years that I have gone after informants, and I have dove headfirst into history and talked about these guys at length, the politics of it all, which nobody else does. He's the most despicable and the biggest liar I've ever seen. He's the biggest liar I've ever seen. This is a man who murdered anybody he was jealous of. Any business he wanted, he took by fucking murder. He's invented narratives that John Gotti told him about John Favara. However, Sammy didn't even know John Gotti at the time of John Favara. These are the things that people are too lazy to go and look for themselves, and they just believe it hook, line, and sinker. And it's just another example of Gravano making himself out to be something he wasn't. He was a nobody until Frankie DeCicco got murdered, which I've always believed Gravano had a hand in. Always. And there's enough to suggest that he was involved without a doubt. And anybody who tells you that Frankie DeCicco was hit by Vinny the Chin doesn't know what they're talking about. There was a political sphere going on in New York at the time, and that nobody other than me seems to talk about. Jimmy Brown, Fiala was double dealing behind John Gotti's back. Danny Marino was double dealing behind John Gotti's back. Nobody talks about that. Why? And that's a story for another day. Gravano, nothing more, nothing less, was an umbrella-carrying bitch. Nothing more. He was a serial killer who didn't have the fucking balls to shoot anybody but once. Remember, those are his words. I only pulled the trigger once. However, if you listen long enough to him, he changes that number too. The guy is living off the power and the strength of John Gotti, not Salvatore Gravano. And then again, I can tell you this for a fact. It's not John Gotti who got bent over a bar and took it in the ass. It was Gravano, and he did that willingly. So that's where I stand on it. Everything I showed you today, everything I spoke about are facts. They're facts. But you have people who want to be friendly with that prick. You have people that think if he calls out their name, there's something special. And that's the difference between me and everybody else. I stand for something. A lot of people don't. They stand for whichever way the fucking water is flowing. Not me. Not me. I'm the only one who didn't run and flock to the rats. The only one. Everybody else does. Not me. Because I'm the only one that has standards. I'm the only one that does. And early in my career, I did what I did. Everybody knows. It's no secret. It doesn't make me a hypocrite. It just means I made a mistake. But there's a large difference between making a mistake almost 20 years ago or whatever the fuck case may be, or 15 years ago, 10 years ago, whatever it was, versus somebody who every other day is interviewing them and talking to them. It's bullshit. It's bullshit. And I understand why people want to hear from them. I do. But I think in fairness, if you're going to do that, ask tough questions. And I think the reason why people don't ask tough questions is because they really don't know who they're talking to. They don't understand mob history. They're not invested that much. And that's no fault of their own. It's just the way that they are. They don't know this happened in 72 or this happened in 71. I do because I've been at it longer than a lot of these people. But that's my whole point, is to be proficient in organized crime history. You really have to read thousands of documents, and I don't think anybody on here does other than me. With the exception of Jake Stoops. I know he does because we talk we talk here and there. He does. He actually does. But a lot of other people say they do, but I know they don't because the minute they open their mouth, I know they're not exactly being on the up and up. Well, like I said, everybody brings, a little something to the genre. There's nothing wrong with that. But I don't think anybody's ever going to get into the politics of it because I don't think they get it. And I think I'm the only one that does. I think me and RJ understand the politics. I think him and I are the only two in the genre that did understand the politics of it. But it is what it is. But that's Gravano. That's the reality of who he is. And one of the things that infuriates me about this whole Gravano thing is, why isn't anybody saying any of this stuff? Why am I the only one that keeps talking about it? It makes me wonder. It just makes me wonder. Anyway, feel free to donate if you will. We will see everybody later on this week on Mob Talk Radio Live.
Start spreading the news. I'm leaving today. I want to be a part of it. New York, New York. These vagabond shoes are longing to stray right through the very heart of it. New York, New York. I want to wake up in a city that doesn't sleep and find I'm king of the hill, top of the heap. These little town blues are melting away. I'll make a brand new start of it in old New York. If I can make it there, I'll make it anywhere. It's up to you, New York, New York. In a city that never sleeps and find I'm #1, top of the list, king of the hill, #1. These little town blues make a brand new start of it in old New York. And if I can make it there, I'm gonna make it anywhere. It's up to you, New York.